the move to try and reduce prison population around the country because of the coronavirus pandemic now means good news for former New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin. He is a free man. So the 63-year-old former mayor walked out of federal prison 3 years early from a 10-year sentence. Mr. Nagin left the prison yesterday. Ray Nagin benefits from the policy implemented by Attorney General William Barr, which ordered prisons around the country to release more federal inmates because of fears of the spreading of the coronavirus. The lack of a prior criminal record made him eligible for the early release. NOLA.com reports he is now back home in Frisco, Texas, where he had bought a home after Katrina. Here's a bit of background on the Nagin case. He was convicted back in 2014 on a number of corruption charges in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. That's when the then mayor was accused of taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. He was a prominent business leader prior to becoming mayor back in 2002. He beat then Lieutenant Governor Mitch Landrieu in a heated race in 2006, who ultimately took Mr. Nagin's place after he went to jail. Right now, the state is confirming just over 27,000 COVID-19 cases, just under 1,700 deaths. Slowly but surely, people are getting off ventilators and leaving the hospital. And best of all, there are now 17,000 presumed recoveries from COVID-19. And for the first time since early March, New Orleans reported no new deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours from Monday actually Sunday to Monday.